Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of Top Notch Science. I'm your host Joe Blazak, and today we're going to be discussing some news from some researchers over at the Universita di Padova. Some researchers in Italy. Now these researchers have created an artificial neural network that has learned to identify relative group sizes without counting. Now the technical term for this is that they've created a machine that has approximate number sense. Now what does that mean? It means that the machine can compare a large size of objects like this to a large size of objects like that and say, this one is bigger than that one. That is all it means. So what's an artificial neural network? An artificial neural network is kind of like a brain. Now inside your brain, you have these things called neurons. About 100 billion of them. Each single one of these neurons has about 10,000 different connections to other neurons. Now these neurons got kind of lonely, so they decided to talk to the other neurons, and they did this through these things called synapses. Each neuron has about 10,000 of these synapses, or connections, to the other neurons. That's a whole lot of friends for each neuron to have. And each neuron decides, I don't really like this guy that much. I'm not going to have a very strong connection with him. Now an artificial neural network uses pretty much the same idea. In the artificial neural network, each little neuron is really just one little piece of information. However, since today's computers aren't very strong compared to the human brain, you can only use a very few number of actual neurons or pieces of information for your neural network. So what they do in the neural network is they sort of break it down into two steps. They take all of one information, that's your starting point, and they run only a few connections going off to other stuff, or a second layer. Now this second layer, right here, takes information from this side, coming in from the different information points, and passes those off into another layer, right over here. Then from your second layer, goes to the side again, and gives you your output. Your output is basically the answer you're looking for. Now that's how an artificial neural network is set up. There's only one problem with this. At the very start, all of the connection strengths are exactly the same. They're all 1. That's not very useful. So how do you get around this problem? You take your system and you run a whole bunch of data through it. And then you consider, how accurate is this? And depending on how accurate it is, you randomly change the input strengths, or you change the importance of each one of those little connections. Then you continue to do this thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So the group of researchers in Italy did the same thing. What they did is they created the first layer. Now the first layer they used to simulate the retina. The retina is a little part of your eye that's actually sensing everything that you see. Now they did this by considering each little pixel on the image that they sent as an individual input on the side here. Then what the group did is they created the second layer right in the middle. And that second layer attempts to recreate some of the functions of brain processing. Then what they did is they decided to train the system. So they put in 52,000 images and let the system run over and over and over again and basically learn what the different group sizes are. Basically this size is bigger than that size. Then what they did to see how well the system could actually understand the difference between large sizes and small sizes is they gave it new information, a new picture. And then they decided to see, how accurate is this? And it turns out that the system actually does it quite accurately. It can tell you, this guy's a couple times bigger than that guy. So why do we want a machine that does all this? Now the reason we want this is because machines don't think like humans do right now. They count. They think, okay, 1, and then 2, and then 3. But when humans look at a group of objects, let's say, we sort of tend to approximate it and say, okay, it's about 3 times bigger than that one. So by making machines that actually think more like we do, as opposed to just straight up counting stuff, we can make things that are actually useful. I'm sure you've seen it in movies all the time. There's some sort of robot that thinks like a human. Now those things are incredibly complicated. Now because of that, they're going to be pretty far off into the future. But these are the basic building blocks of what we need to accomplish that. Now the artificial research field is a big field with a lot of stuff happening in it, so you can expect a lot of new stories coming out on that as well, and I'll be right here to cover those. That's it for today's episode of Top Notch Science. I hope you've enjoyed it, and you can expect another episode coming on Wednesday.